Hey friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. Had a bunch of people in Washington say that their dogs watch the presentation at the beginning when Huck is on. So Huck just recently had a bath. She's all happy, healthy, and she's doing really good. She said, Dad, I'm ready for more production quality, more scratches, more loves.
Here's what I found.
So I think she'll be here and she'll be with us for a few minutes at least. All right. Thanks for being here. I had a strange comment the other day from somebody who said, hey Dave, straighten up your binders behind you. My OCD is going crazy. You got to straighten it. As good as you're gonna get. Yeah. And just so people don't know, those are case files. I look at them every day. And I have a ton of them. There's many behind the poster, and then you can see where they're at. I've got a lot. I always keep copious notes, pictures. It's all there. And in case I'm ever questioned or law enforcement wants some information, I'm there. I got it. So what are we doing here today? This is a missing persons case. A little bit about search and rescue that I think you should know. Everybody in search and rescue lives by guidance. Most of them go to school to become a search and rescue worker. Then you get certified and you live by a guide. A guide meaning it's a pamphlet that tells you how far out to search. And the profile of the missing person is filled out by the search and rescue coordinator, kind of like the boss. And then from that, they develop a strategy on how to search. I've had 50 to 100 comments in the last 10 years from search and rescue people saying, Dave, you threw a wrench right into the middle of our entire search plans. When we watch your videos and you have all these cases that small kids are found miles and miles away, it doesn't fit with what we know about search and rescue. So there's one man that kind of wrote the search and rescue manuals that are used. He's never spoke to me. I've spoke at the biggest search and rescue conference in the world, NASAR, N-A-S-A-R, but that specific person won't talk to me because it totally skews everything he says in his manual. I don't know what to say about it, but if he did his research, he would have found the same numbers and the same amount of miles I did. Not sure what to make of his obstinance and reluctance to acknowledge some of these kids are found a long ways away, and adults for that matter. So as we head into the hiking season, I'll bring up different things that I think you should carry. And one I've talked about a long time ago, but I'll talk about it again. This is only 1.4 ounces, very light. And it's described as an emergency horn. And it could be a party horn, it could be whatever you want. But I actually picked this up at a search and rescue store in Idaho when I was there. And I liked it because it was so light. And like they said, it could fit in a car, purse, pocket, briefcase, or backpack. I like it because when you're on your last breath, maybe sometimes you can't use a whistle, you can't yell. You could use that. A lot of times people have said using this in the presence of a bear has worked to scare the bear off. Maybe, maybe not. But This is something I have now started to carry in my backpack. And I would tell people you should as well. It could carry a lot further than your voice. And it's unique. There's no way that a searcher is going to interpret that for an animal. It's really cheap. I think it was like $3.95 or something. It was ridiculously inexpensive. So let's talk about today's case. And before we do, I want you to check right now to make sure you're subscribed. And then I want to ask you a question. The average number of viewers in the last 10 videos have been around 50,000 per video. But we're only getting about 4,000 to 7,000 thumbs up. A lot of you have commented about this. Now, why is that? Because I know it's super easy to leave a thumbs up on a video. Now, I'm not pressuring you to do it. This is a question. Because dozens and dozens of you have asked the same questions on the videos. They don't understand it. Neither do I. Maybe you guys are too busy. Maybe you don't think the video's so good. I don't know. But it's a question. And then what we are contemplating, and I'd like to see or hear your feedback about this, on one of the upcoming videos, we're going to ask everyone to leave a comment. And the comment is just where you're watching from. Your city and state, your city and province, your country and city. That's it. We're going to try to figure out if we can get a number of comments that blow the reviewers number that they give us off the charts. As an example, if we get 100,000 comments and we're only getting credit for 40,000 reviews, something's wrong. So we're thinking about doing that, and we usually get about 400 or 500 comments per video. So we'd be asking 99% of you to step up and leave a comment in one of the upcoming videos. Not this one. We're still contemplating this. See what you think. On with the show. This case has to do with a missing woman. And I know we don't talk about ladies very often, but it's an important topic. And a significant number of women do disappear. When I started to work up this case, I started to think of an X-Files episode. And it was one where somebody was in their home, in bed, and it's as though they were summoned out of the room. And their spouse was asleep in the bed next to them and never woke up. And that's very common in abduction cases. So kind of think about that as I tell you this story. Elizabeth Hackbart, 33 years old, missing August 21st, 1983. She was married to Brian Hackbart, and they had two sons, Sean and Matthew, and a daughter, Ruth Ann. They lived in Wisconsin. She had been taking medications for headaches, and it was explained that in the past she had been depressed. Well, she was born Elizabeth Timmerman, September 27, 1949, in Wisconsin. Stop there for a second. In the past, I haven't given birth dates of people. And some of you have asked me to give the birth date because it helps you in maybe reading the person or doing some charts. I have no idea. But when somebody's dead, birth date's unimportant to them, so I don't mind giving it out. And she was a very strong member of the Bethany Lutheran Church in her city. Now, she lived in Jefferson County, Wisconsin, with Brian and her kids in a home. The couple went to bed on August 20th at about 11 o'clock at night. Everyone was asleep. Brian says he wakes up at 5 a.m. He looks over. Elizabeth is gone. It's Elizabeth. And Brian says he gets up and he checks. Her purse is there, keys are there, all of her ID. Everything of importance in her life is left behind. So before the kids get up, Brian gets out and he starts searching their yard, garage, the living room, family room, washer dryer room. And then he goes to the neighbor's home and he asks them if they've seen her and could they search their yards because she can't be found. And then Brian spends the day calling all of his relatives, work, friends, associates. Have they seen her? Have they heard from her? Nothing, nothing, nothing. Well, they lived in a city called Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. This is approximately where it is. It's the Great Lakes. Fort Atkinson. This is Madison. This is Milwaukee. Now let me explain to you something. This area of Wisconsin has many missing people. And most of them are related to missing 411 or sobering coincidence. What I mean by that is that most of them are young college men that disappeared and were later found in water. So when I was thinking about this case, I had a couple things going through my mind. The X-Files and standard Wisconsin cases. Now, on a closer map, this is kind of the area she disappeared in. Okay? Now, near the home of the Hackbarts, there were fields, woods, everything you can imagine. It wasn't a real thick community with homes. And in fact, the population of the city was only 12,519. It was the largest city in Jefferson County. And in a strange twist, I happened to stumble into that Fort Atkinson has Indian burial mounds. Now, if you would ask me, well, Dave, why even bring that up? Well, because in years past, I didn't know anything about them. But there's a lot of strangeness associated with Indian burial mounds. Well, the first deputy gets there. Brian calls the sheriff at 5 o'clock after he gives up. He's called all the relatives. He's called friends. He searched the neighborhood. He's at a loss. Calls the Jefferson County Sheriffs. They come out. They take the report. And just like in every other search and rescue, what's the first thing they do? They search the house. And it's a very thorough search of the house. They find nothing. They search the yard. They find nothing. And then Brian explains what he's done to contact neighbors and relatives, and nobody's heard anything. So the deputy calls a supervisor and explains what he has. And the supervisor says, okay, we're going to call out a full search and rescue for tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, they sent more deputies over and they searched that first night, that area within a half mile of the house. Probably had four, they didn't say exactly, but I'm guessing 4 or 5 deputies at most. So August 22nd was the first day of the call out. And it was a full search and rescue. They had aerial and ground searchers and canines. So they had planes flying. They had ground pounders, people like me on the ground, walking a grid pattern, looking for things on the ground. And then they had canines. They were looking for a scent trail. Well, they had a very good scent trail because they knew for a fact Elizabeth was in her bed that night. Brian gave them all the scent they needed, and the dogs never led to a body. August 23rd, same search continued. The sheriffs at this time were also interviewing neighbors. Have you heard yelling and screaming coming from the house? Have they had a bad relationship? Have you ever seen them fight? They're trying to set a profile for the family. Nothing. It was all mundane, good family, loving parents. Nothing. August 24th, detectives are frustrated. They're frustrated because if Elizabeth had only walked away, they should have found the body or her alive, because they had canine teams out, they had aerial teams out, and ground pounders out, and they'd searched out to 4-mile radius from the house and found nothing. So now, as would be normal, they start centering in on Brian. Why? Because in the vast majority of cases, it's the husband that's the root of the evil in the disappearance of a wife. It's just the facts. So they asked Brian to come into the sheriff's office and take a polygraph. He goes, yeah, for sure. He comes in. 3 hours later, the sheriff gives a press release and says Brian is not a suspect. He passed with 100%. He doesn't know where his wife is. He doesn't know what caused his wife to leave. He didn't hear her leave. He's not a suspect. He's helping us as much as he can. Okay, wash your hands of him. Because when a sheriff says something like that, that means the polygraph examiner is 100% sure Brian was telling the truth. August 25th, search continues. Around their house, farm fields, all the farmers got in their tractors, drove their fields looking for anything they could find. Planes were up above the field looking, etc., etc. August 26th, search and rescue was termed with nothing found. Sheriff said he would continue investigating as new things came up. There were news articles requesting anybody who had any information about Elizabeth to come forward, if anybody had seen her walking on the roads in the area, if anybody had picked her up in the area. There were theories maybe she was picked up and driven from the area. Those theories always come up. Now, if you're the family and you're living in this house, what are you thinking? Are you thinking it's a spooky house? Are you just thinking about the welfare of your mom or your wife? Would you want to move? I don't know. I do have, whether I believed anyone or not, I would ask for all the help from anyone I could get. And I mean anyone. Because it's your wife. So, 70 days after Elizabeth disappears, 1/4 mile from the residence, the Hackbart residence, a neighbor farmer is plowing his fields. Craig Bean was on his plow, and he was near the fence line when he saw something unusual. So Bean gets off his plow, walks over to this object that looks out of place, and he finds a body. He didn't touch it, but he called the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office from his farmhouse. Now what's interesting is that Bean had played a part in the search. So Jefferson County Sheriffs arrive on his farm, and he takes them out to the corner of this field, 1/4 mile from the house. And the sheriffs determine it's a woman, and they quickly know that there's only one person missing from this area, and that was Elizabeth. So they call for the county coroner, a guy named Reichert. Reichert stated that the clothing on the body matched that worn by Elizabeth. And he was suspicious. Reichert was suspicious. And so rather than just doing the autopsy himself and flushing it away and just saying whatever, he ordered the body picked up and sent to the state crime lab for examination. Should be done much more than it is, but I admire Reichert for doing it. He did say that when it was being loaded up for transport, he didn't see any violence to the body. And it was taken to the lab. Now, obviously, the whole community hears about this. Searchers that were involved in the initial search heard about this. One of the searchers made a statement to the news and said, "Hey, I went right to that spot where Elizabeth was found. And I personally walked within 2 feet of where she was eventually found." She wasn't there. Farmer Bean was interviewed by the sheriff. Bean stated, "I worked the same field in September and passed within 2 feet of the body, and there's no way I would have missed it." Whoa. Whoa. So now you're the sheriff's detective. What do you make of that? What do you think? How do you respond? Or do you just ignore it? Well, I think what they were doing is they were waiting for the return from the state about the cause of death. They're probably thinking she was strangled, or there's a bullet somewhere in her, or something. Because how can the body suddenly appear? Now, you're a critical thinker. You've been trained for a couple years on these incidents. So to you and me, finding a body that close and being missed that long isn't so unusual, because you and I know it couldn't have been there. But these guys have never been up against this before. And Bean says, and he explained it to the sheriff, that for Elizabeth to get to the location where they found her, she would have had to traverse over one long field and over 2 sets of barbed wire fences in the dark, with no cuts to her body and no torn clothing. So I know many of you have never gone over a barbed wire fence. Many of you don't even know what a barbed wire fence is. And if you haven't been out in the farm fields and ranches, and you may not understand. But it's hard to get over those during the daytime without getting cut. I mean, you can do it. It's not extraordinarily difficult, but you got to kind of meander your way over. In the dark, I don't think you could do it. That's just me. I just don't think you could do it. Especially if you're unfamiliar with that fence line you're going over. I don't think you could. So, the Jefferson County District Attorney, a man named Richard Perkins, gets the entire case file. And he stated to a public newspaper, this is his quote, "The case is absolutely baffling." For a DA to say that, it's baffling. So, November 7th, 1983. Body was found October 4th. So, a little over a month after the body's found, the state crime lab releases its findings to Coroner Reichert about Elizabeth. And they release the cause of death. I know there's physicians out there that watch our videos. If you're a physician, a coroner, please comment. You can do it anonymously about these findings I'm going to give you, because I tried to figure it out online and I can't figure out what it means. So Reichert stated that the cause of death was suicide by overdose. She'd been taking a drug called Florinol, Florinol, Florinol with codeine for her headaches at the time. Now, Reichert said that she had 0.7 micrograms of codeine in her system, along with 21 micrograms of, I'll spell this, B-I-T-A-L, Biddle Battle, that's kind of what it sounds like. 21 micrograms of that in her system, and 0.7 micrograms of codeine. Reichert makes a statement that these are extremely high levels compared to the therapeutic range, and he said it would have been highly toxic. Okay. I need the opinion from our experts out there. I know you guys have them. I know. So tell us what you think. Now remember, Elizabeth had 3 kids. If she was going to take her life, my question is, how far gone was she when she walked out of the house? Why didn't Brian hear her leave? Did she take the drugs before she went to bed? Because we don't know when she left. There was never a statement by the coroner on the condition of the body, which is something I would have really wanted to know. Here's my issue on the case. She's found a quarter mile from her home. I can tell you for an absolute fact, body odor can travel way more than a quarter mile. Death stench is horrid. So why didn't somebody smell this? The farmer and the searcher stated they passed within 2 feet of the body and said they wouldn't miss it. The obvious question, how long was it there? Key point, they brought in canines. Canines didn't find her. Canines should have gone directly from her front door right to that corner of that lot if she was there. There should have been no question. Even an average trained canine should be able to follow that in a quarter of a mile. Easily. If the plane missed it, if the ground pounders missed it, if the canines missed it, if the farmer missed it, how probable is that in your mind? Be real. Think about that. Now, I know some of you, I know this is going to happen. You're going to say, well, she was probably murdered and injected with these drugs and then dumped there. Okay. Why in the world would a murder suspect dump her so close back to her home? Can you imagine the risk that murder suspect is taking? Let me tell you, Wisconsin is filled with woods and dirt roads. You could drive out on some lonely dirt road and dump a body and never know. Nobody would ever see you. But to come back within a quarter mile of where she lived to dump a body, that makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. No logical sense. And murderer suspects are pretty smart sometimes. I think they're mostly smart enough to not do that. But as we know, something is dumping the bodies back at the scene in a way that we'll never see it. We'll never see it being done. In the same way, mutilated cows are never seen being dropped at the scene where they are found. Boom, boom. So I appreciate you being here. One of the goals of what I do is to make you think. I want you to walk away from my videos thinking, how is this possible? And then the comments you guys make are just outstanding. And I get it that you are thinking. And you lay a lot of things on the line that sometimes I haven't thought of. And I approach the team with them, and sometimes they haven't thought of them either. So keep the comments coming. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Please share it on your social media. Make sure you're subscribed. And remember something. Being nice costs nothing. It's the kindness revolution. Paulides out.